Last night I was at home and it hit me thinking, why is there FA Cup games happening on a Thursday? Well, money, that's the obvious answer. But the other question is, why is it Sheffield United v Cardiff? But I went to go watch it anyway, or at least I watched the start of it, and I was surprised to see how there was about 6,000 people at Bramall Lane. Keep in mind, Sheffield United aren't a small club by any means. To see such a poor turnout for the FA Cup, which is a common trend we've seen most years, do people even care about the FA Cup anymore? Now, to give it a context, I'm born in 1998, so I'm 26. And even for when I was growing up, the FA Cup still had a bit of care about it. But before my time, of course, it was more and more important. The FA Cup was the game of the season. It was the big day out. It was really important. Now, due to money and other competitions, and it seems that there's much more priority in simply, let's say, for example, simply being in the top 4 of the Premier League, that has a lot more financial benefit than winning the FA Cup. Then when it comes to competing in other competitions, the FA Cup doesn't take as much importance. And this isn't anything new, the idea of squad rotation for teams like a Sheffield United or maybe let's say like a Burnley that may decide to just completely rotate their team, give some of the second bit players a chance, and if you get knocked out, well, it doesn't really matter because you're going for the league anyway, so who cares? And that's always been a thing. But the worst part is, when you look at a competition, you want there to be some excitement, right? Let's be honest here, really only 5-6 teams are really going to win the FA Cup this year. And it hasn't changed since 2013. In any cup competition since 2013, only one team out of the traditional top 6, let's be honest, take out Spurs, that has won a cup, either the League Cup or the FA Cup. The only team that's out of that top 5, is Leicester City back in 2020. Or 2021, I forgot which year it was. And 2013, we had a glorious year where both Swansea City won the League Cup against Bradford City, by the way, and that would have been an incredible story. And then Wigan Athletic with the Ben Watson winner against Manchester City. Before then, we had a few more different teams win the FA Cup or win the League Cup, with the likes of a Portsmouth winning the FA Cup as well. The last team that wasn't a top 6 team in the final was back in 2018-19, which was Watford, and they got battered 6-0. Portsmouth was in there, Hull City was in there, Aston Villa was in there, Crystal Palace was in there, Cardiff City was in there, West Ham was there, Everton was there, Stoke City was there. But when you look at Sheffield United v Cardiff City, it is just one of the most boring games imaginable because neither team really wants to be there. No turnout for the away end, no turnout for the home end, no one really cares. Because at the end of the day, they know there's really no hope of them even going far anyway. So quickly tell me down below your thoughts of the FA Cup, like, subscribe, and there's all designs for the best football prints on the market, made by myself, and of course with many famous FA Cup moments there too. So go and check it out. Code FA Cup for 15% off. The Cup used to be an opportunity to make it your year. Maybe you stand a chance and you could do something special. Now it's just an inconvenience. But maybe I'm being too harsh. When we look at the likes of, let's say, Coventry City, of what happened last year, and without one of the most unfortunate, and let's be honest, BS offside calls, they really should have been in that FA Cup final last season. They really should have. If they were to win, probably a different story against Man City, but the fact of the matter is, it meant something to them. And it's kind of one of those stories where, I know, like, if you're an EFL team in League 1, League 2, the EFL trophy, you kind of don't care about a competition, like, at all, until you're in, like, let's say, the quarter-final, semi-final, where there's maybe a slight chance you can maybe make Wembley. Now, there has been some annoyance this year. Of course, the FA Cup replays did indeed get scrapped, so there's of course been annoyance towards, let's say, the top clubs, where it feels like it's more beneficial towards them. There was also something similar this year in the League Cup, where it was actually in the first, like, round where the top clubs were entered in. They were actually capped in terms of where they can actually come up against other teams, meaning that they couldn't play each other, which is, you know, make of that as you will. If you were to pinpoint one moment where the FA Cup kind of lost its importance, or at least was a writing on the wall, was probably back in 2000, where Manchester United actively withdrew from the FA Cup in order to compete in the World Club Championship. actively seeking one tournament which is more beneficial for financial gain and maybe worldwide publicity. Maybe one more reason is the fact that the semi-finals for the FA Cup is played at Wembley. Now, for someone who supports a lesser club than top six, right? I kind of still like the idea because at least it gives you that hope, a bit more hope that maybe you can still make it down to Wembley if you make it to semi-finals other than just a final. But I can get the idea that having the National Stadium used 2 more times every year kind of makes that special nature of it being the final feel a bit less special, you know. I mean, also keep this in mind as well. Let's say that you do make it to the final, right? That's 2 separate big day payouts to go to Wembley. And if you're a City fan, you probably go to Wembley at least 20 times in the last decade, right? That's a lot of money. Wembley is not cheap. To go into semi-final and a final almost every other single year, it does add up. And also makes it that, let's say if you're a City fan, which has happened last year, I believe, that you just don't bother filling out the stadium for a semi-final because you kind of, you know, like, there's really no point spending all that money when you could just make it to the final. That's what happened when we played Sheffield United not too long ago. Many teams recorded all-time low attendances for the FA Cup. Of course, last night for Sheffield United against Cardiff was one damning example, but this has been the case for almost every single team in the entirety of the 92. If you're someone a bit older than me, if you're in your 30s, 40s, then you would agree with me when I say that the FA Cup at one stage, before the Premier League got big, was almost as important, or bigger, more important than winning the Premier League, or winning the First Division. Winning the FA Cup used to be more of a prestigious event than winning the top flight. And that's the fact. Maybe it was the element of going to the old Wembley and having that day out, and it felt like much more of a special occasion for the entire country. Maybe that could be a factor. If you do look back on the highest recorded attendances for most clubs registered in their history, you'll find that a lot of them it features the FA Cup. Usually it involves the FA Cup 5th round or 6th round or even 4th round. Of course, this was before mandatory seats was put in place prior to Hillsborough disaster, of course. So you'll find out, of course, people just flooded through the gates and just stood up at the ground. And this is when the FA Cup had much more importance than just a normal First Division game. Of course, this isn't the case for every single factor. Of course, Everton, United and Chelsea still have theirs in the First Division. Manchester City has the second highest attendance back in 1934 against Stoke City in the FA Cup 6th round. 84,000 people, and I mean, people say City have no history, but I mean, their highest ever attendance is above Man United back in that era. The FA Cup 3rd round is always one of the best days of calendar. It should be. And it does feel like I don't feel like there's that much hope for it this year. There's some draws that can maybe give something, but, you know, Chelsea beat Morecambe. They should beat the Liverpool v Aki. Can you imagine Accrington Stanley beating Liverpool? Probably not. Maybe the best hope you may have, Tamworth beat Spurs. I mean, I know it's Spurs, but come on now. Maybe the most exciting one here is maybe Millwall v Dagenham and Redbridge. You know, there's a bit of a local spice to it as well. Non-league v Millwall. Maybe. You never know. Comment down below your thoughts on the FA Cup, and as we're reaching the weekend, I do wonder what the attendances would be for many clubs, because as we saw against Sheffield United, it's not looking good. And to be fair, I did look at the other game, Fulham v Watford. Watford, of course, gave a good attendance because it is an away game in London, so, you know, against a Premier League team, there'd be decent away turnout. In terms of the home turnout, it's not too surprising that, again, wasn't packed out of any means, but it wasn't awful. So comment down below your thoughts, like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.